Ladies and gentlemen, Atlanta is holding its breath tonight. What began as merely another altercation in the jailhouse has now devolved into a criminal drama fit for Netflix. King Harris, yes, his life literally hangs on a thread as the son of rap legends T.I. and Tiny lies in the intensive care unit. And it's a straightforward but sinister question that is ripping the internet apart. Is this merely a terrible mishap? Or a well-planned takedown? Physicians are discussing organ failure in whispers. The nurses won't leave his side. Additionally, fans are using hashtags like #prayerforking and #fairness for Harris. Here's the worst part though. King's injuries don't add up to a typical fight, according to leaked reports. Not at all. We are discussing wounds from torture. Planned, intentional violence, the kind of violence you only witness when someone is trying to make a point. Rumors surface just when you believe things can't get much darker, erupt about masked individuals breaking into his hospital room and fiddling with equipment. Anonymous sources whisper, audio leaks fall, and cameras cut out. It was an order from above. I would like to know if King Harris is fighting for his life or against a system that wants to keep him silent forever. Celebrity children have never fared well in the spotlight. However, it seems as though the spotlight has turned into a blazing magnifying glass that is focused on King Harris, the son of renowned rapper T.I., and his every action. Furthermore, given the startling revelation that the ICU's condition has gotten worse, and everyone is waiting for updates that might make a big difference online. What started off as just another night of uncontrollably dramatic events has turned into something much more sad. The Harris family is currently going through the most difficult 24 hours of their lives. However, how did we arrive here? How did a young man who grew up with wealth, fame, and privilege end up where he is now? While his mother Tiny and father T.I. watch helplessly, he is struggling for his life in a hospital bed. There is more to the solution than a single viral headline. We must go back in time to the sequence of circumstances that pulled King Harris into the kind of tempest for which no family could ever be ready in order to comprehend the turmoil of this tragic tale. A jailhouse was where it all started, an occurrence that was intended to be kept confidential. King, who was already under investigation for his careless actions, got into a violent fight while being held. King was already notorious for his spectacular outbursts, so at first, fans assumed this was simply another one. However, the gravity of the issue became evident as more information surfaced. Insiders claimed that King was ambushed within the establishment. The remarks that were exchanged in the heat of the moment did not start this conflict. This was ruthless, calculating, and terrible. King never saw it coming, according to family sources. He was standing in the common area for 1 minute, and then he was surrounded by fists and mayhem. The guards stepped in late, and King had already sustained injuries that were worse than anyone had anticipated by the time they dragged him away. The response from the internet just made the situation worse. Trolls turned the incident against King instead of supporting him. Become memes. The narrative was misrepresented by gossip blogs to get clicks, and even old friends exploited it against him for a young man who is already drowning under the gaze of the public. It was an intolerable shame. However, the extent of King's injuries was not immediately apparent to the public. Physicians soon discovered that his condition went beyond minor bruising and cuts. His inside injuries needed to be treated right away. The Harris family's horror started at that point. After the fight, within a few hours after being moved from the detention center to a hospital, King was hospitalized in the intensive care unit. For T.I., a father who has made a living on being resilient, tough, and untouchable. This was the tipping point. Although he has never shied away from attention, neither celebrity nor wealth could protect him from the sight of his son lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines. According to family members, T.I. had a private breakdown. The horrific prospect of losing his son broke his hardened fod. However, it has been stated that Tiny has remained at the hospital for days, supporting King during each test, surgery, and update. From the medical professionals, there were a lot of theories on the internet after King was admitted to the intensive care unit. This, according to some, was the result of King's careless lifestyle, which is frequent at last. His quest for attention and controversy had caught up with him. Others maintained that there was more to the narrative, implying that the attack had gang-related motivations, conspiracies, or even hidden FOs. The Harris family, however, was left holding on to hope and hoping for a miracle within the next day while the internet debated. There has been fear in that intensive care unit every hour. Physicians informed the family that whether King's body could recover from the inside injuries would depend on the next day or the next 24 hours. There was hope for recovery if his condition improved. The repercussions would be disastrous otherwise. The plot then takes a gloomy turn at that point, because even if King's body was still in that hospital bed, his name was they were pulling walls farther into the muck. Startling leaks started to surface. Unsettling allegations, confidential discussions, and even rumors regarding King's mental health prior to the assault. Rather than attending to his health, the controversy was widely covered by the media, which portrayed King as a careless celebrity kid who caused this situation rather than as a victim. It has been heartbreaking for the fans. Haters have found it to be amusing. And it's been terrible for the Harris family. According to reports, T.I. himself informed close pals, "Fame is no longer the focus of this. This is about my son's life. It's about music." And that's where the first part of this tragic tale leaves us on the brink of doubt. Harris, King's condition is in jeopardy. The Harris family is going through a nightmare that no parent should ever have to go with, and the internet isn't stopping its speculation. However, as the following chapter begins, one terrifying question still stands. What actually took place in that prison? And who desired the stillness of King Harris? King Harris may be fighting for his life in the hospital. However, the actual battleground is outside those boundaries. In the harsh echo chambers of social media, the realm of public opinion, and gossip websites, the internet is now the jury, the judge and executioner, analyzing every aspect of his assault, his way of life, and the standing of his family. Nevertheless, one eerie question keeps coming up amid the ceaseless cacophony. What actually took place within that prison? Because King was attacked by other prisoners in what seemed to be an unplanned altercation, according to official sources. However, unnamed sources have provided a lot of darkish images. According to them, King was singled out on purpose, and rumors about his last name and well-known father made him a prime target for others trying to sneak inside. According to this hypothesis, this was more than simply a battle. The goal was to silence King before he could provide more significant information. Things take a dark turn at that point. A number of jailhouse messages that had been leaked started making the rounds on the internet shortly after the incident. Voice notes, screenshots of purported text communications, and even extremely grainy video footage suggested a plot that King might have discovered by mistake. People or talked too candidly about topics he shouldn't have. Was keeping secrets in mind here? Was T.I. the target of the warning shot? Or was it just a tragic instance of a young man who got into the wrong situation at the wrong time because of his temper? These rumors have been like salt on an open wound for the Harris family. Tiny has declined to comment openly, but family friends disclosed that she thinks the attack was intentional. "Someone was trying to harm my child." According to one insider, her voice broke as she spoke. In the meantime, T.I. has said nothing, but those who know him well understand that this does not imply weakness. He has been making calls, pulling threads, and attempting to piece things together behind the scenes. Who had the audacity to hurt his son? The hospital's updates, meanwhile, continue to be bleak. King is being closely monitored by doctors, who have cautioned the family that his condition has not stabilized. Despite his youth and strength, the trauma has left his body dangerously weak, and inside injuries are still making his recuperation more difficult. The description of the following 24 hours is still ongoing. As crucial, however, the fact that the internet has become a circus just makes things more difficult for the family. Many users are making fun of King rather than supporting him. TikToks reenacting the brawl in the jailhouse, hashtags making fun of his situation, and memes showing him in the intensive care unit have all gone popular. It's the height of cruelty, and it exposes a startling reality about our culture. King's suffering is merely another source of amusement for many. Nevertheless, some people think King is being unjust despite the internet jeering, villainized. Although he has made mistakes, his supporters contend that he is not deserving of this degree of brutality or humiliation. They note that he is only 20 years old and still learning his life and battling the tremendous strain of becoming a legendary father. King doesn't have the luxury of making mistakes in private like other youngsters do. Every argument, every utterance, and every slip-up is magnified by millions. However, this is where the tragedy of the story intensifies. The horrifying audio that was purportedly captured inside the jail started to surface online just as the family believed things couldn't get much worse. In the clip, King is being threatened, taunted, and shouted at by voices. Despite being unreliable and scratchy, the audio creates a terrifying impression of premeditation, as if the attack was planned rather than unplanned. Humiliation. Some fans think that the Harris family's strong belief that there is more to the story may be explained by this released audio. Who was responsible for this arrangement, if it was one? More importantly, why? On the internet, theories have proliferated. Some accuse envious prisoners who aspired to become well known. Others think the incident might have been influenced by rival organizations outside the jail to send a message to T.I. However, the most sinister idea contends that King's vocal opinions and careless internet behavior may have introduced him to strong adversaries who wished to silence him. The Harris family, however, continues to endure their ordeal in silence as rumors abound. According to sources, T.I. has also remained in the hospital, pacing the hallways, yelling for updates, and yelling at anyone who provides evasive responses. Witnesses claim that at one point, he started crying, which is unusual for the man who has made his existence about being robust and unflappable. Conversely, Tiny has been characterized as broken yet uncompromising. According to reports, she stays at her son's bedside, holding his hand instead of eating, speaking prayers into his ear while passing his hand through the tubes and devices, despite the fact that he is still not responding. In a heartfelt post on social media, their daughter Zanique begs followers to stop circulating misinformation and instead offer prayers for King's healing. However, the internet is divided as usual. Half of it is making fun of King's demise, and the other half is spreading conspiracies. Additionally, the Harris family is left holding on to optimism in the midst of everything, hoping that the coming day would bring progress rather than catastrophe. And the cliffhanger comes at this point. King is lying, and the shocking sources indicate that another video from inside the jail may soon surface, showing the ICU, unconscious and vulnerable. This video allegedly shows King being ambushed at that same moment. Additionally, if revealed, it might solve the mystery or permanently damage the family's reputation. Because if the video shows that King was more than just a victim, he might have started the altercation or been complicit in anything darker. The Harris family might never fully recover from the ways the internet will rip him apart. However, if it reveals that King was singled out, it may reveal a plot that extends much beyond the confines of Hat Prison. In any case, the truth will soon be out. The rest of the world can only wait while the Harris family prepares for the storm, observing seeing a family's secret suffering play out in public while knowing that everything could alter by the following daybreak. Internet users are holding their breath. Everyone is anticipating the next piece of proof, checking their feeds, looking for hashtags, and wondering when not if it will fall. The most talked about topic on the internet right now is the alleged video taken inside the jail. Some others say they have already seen samples on obscure websites. Others maintain that all of the excitement is phony, merely one more fake leak. But one thing is for sure, real or not, the horror for the Harris family is far from over. The officials' sole silence increases the fire's fuel. The public is only more convinced that anything is being concealed since jail officials have refrained from commenting, citing an ongoing inquiry. Why don't they simply play the video? Why do fans expect so much anonymity in Instagram comments, Twitter threads, and TikTok lives? Every question that remains unsolved turns into one more conspiracy wall block. King's health has become much more precarious in the interim. The Harris family was discreetly cautioned by doctors that internal bleeding concerns could get worse at any time. King has responded somewhat physically, but he is still far from stable. It is reported that T.I. mumbled if they wanted to break as they paced the antiseptic hospital hallways. "This is how you do it, me." However, the internet doesn't take a break for sorrow. It feeds on it. Memes are changing. False edits of ICU film are being disseminated for influence. A YouTuber even performed a parody of King Harris's final remarks, which received millions of views in a single day. There are no boundaries to cruelty. However, a darker question lurks beneath the twisted humor. What if these widely shared videos aren't completely fake? What if a few of them are founded on information that was leaked from in the jail or the hospital? It's important to remember that this is not the first time a Harris scandal has been made public. Chaos has resulted from previous family disputes and King's careless live streams. Spent years following him. The distinction is that this time, reputation and disgrace are not at risk. They have to do with life or death. Additionally, as the Harris family members suffer, rumors of outside intervention intensify. According to anonymous insiders, this action may have been pushed to send a strong message to rival groups that were worried about T.I.'s power in the Atlantic scene. Others claim that jail officials purposefully set this up so that the fight may get worse in return for bribes. Although there are other hypotheses, the suspicion is genuine, and it's painted a scary image. However, there is yet another, even more contentious perspective. King's demise, according to some detractors, was inevitable and the consequence of his own conceit and poor choices. They indicate his fight history, his combative online conduct, and his contempt for authority. King was more than a victim to them. He was a ticking time bomb, and it was just a question of when it would explode. Is that fair, though? Should a young man be executed for his transgressions? The argument is most heated there. Some believe that this catastrophe occurred because of a malfunctioning system. For a rich child who believed he was untouchable, others see poetic justice. The first hazy clip of the purported jail footage appears just as the conflict appears to be reaching its climax. Online, similar to a wildfire, it spreads. The 7-second clip seems to show King surrounded by other prisoners. The video is unsteady, the brutality is evident, but the lighting is awful. You can see the mayhem in those brief moments, with shouts resonating, fists flying, and King slumping against the wall. The video ends suddenly, leaving the planet in dire need of more. However, that was sufficient. In a matter of minutes, hashtags go viral. Hashtag King received his just desserts after hashtag Justice forked. Online, two armies emerge. One defends King as the victim of a vicious plot, while the other makes fun of him as the mastermind behind his own demise. Meanwhile, the Harris family is still in pieces. Tiny interrupts her speech with a post that breaks my heart. My infant is struggling to survive. This isn't amusement. This is true. The article receives millions of likes, but the comments are a harsh and compassionate battleground. T.I. continues by saying, "You guys find this amusing. I'm shorter, but heavier. Even still, the internet is like a hurricane. I hope you never experience this suffering." Rumors keep coming in. Premature rip posts have been sparked by claims that King has already died. Others maintain that he has spoken to his relatives and regained consciousness. The Harris family won't confirm or refute any of the updates, and each one contradicts the others. While the rest of the world looks on like spectators at a gladiatorial fight, King fights hour after hour in the intensive care unit. That is the only reality. However, let's take a time to reflect because, beyond the hashtags, memes, and the "he deserved it" argument belies a more serious problem. How does this relate to the culture we have established? About a world where tragedy and the anguish of a young man become popular topics turns into a joke, and death is but another kind of amusement. Perhaps it is the true scandal in this case. Because one thing will always be true, regardless of the King's recovery or whether the attack's true nature comes to light. His story has been weaponized against him and his family, consumed, and turned into a commodity. His name is now used as a hashtag. His suffering has turned into a brand. His life is now a topic of discussion. Additionally, the Harris family waits for news that might either break or save them in that chilly hospital room. The outside world is already getting ready for the next controversy, the next widely shared information, or the next news story. The fight for King Harris might be in the intensive care unit. The struggle for the rest of us, however, is whether we will continue to laugh at his misery or eventually acknowledge it for what it is, a disaster that is happening right now. The terrifying cliffhanger is right here. As medical professionals get ready to release their latest update, rumors are circulating that the whole uncut jail footage, which authorities are making every effort to conceal, is on the verge of going viral. It won't only shake the Harris family if that's true. It will upend the whole system of celebrity, authority, and the harsh cost of growing up in the public eye. Because there will be no turning back once the footage is out. We just went through one of the most turbulent and dark periods in the Harris family's history. Ladies and gentlemen, King Harris, a young man, is struggling to breathe while he lies in a hospital bed. His family is in ruins. There is disagreement on the internet, yet somewhere there is the truth regarding what actually took place inside the jail is either still being buried or is just waiting to blow up. Here's the lingering query though. Which side of history are you going to support? Can you see was King Harris an irresponsible troublemaker who was finally put to the test? Or do you believe that he was a victim of a flawed system and that his punishment was harsher than his transgressions ever merited? Furthermore, let's not forget this is not the end of the narrative. The complete, uncensored jail film is still the subject of circulating rumors. If it leaks, it can show King as the victim of a well-planned conspiracy or reveal him as the person who started the fire that burned him. The Harris family will never be the same, and the consequences will be disastrous in either case. Thus, I would like to hear from you. Do you think King Harris was a young man destroyed by forces greater than himself, or did he design his own demise? Was this merely another altercation in a prison cell, or was it a part of something more sinister than even T.I. cannot control himself? Put down your comments in the comments section, since this is more than just rumors. This is a cultural reminder. Press the like button if we're as surprised as you are. Distribute this video to help the truth get out more quickly, compared to the lies. Additionally, remember to join us on Celeb Fusion, where we bring you the controversies that nobody else is willing to feel. This is by no means the end. It's only the start.